Manny Navarro joining us right now, who covers the Hurricanes for The Athletic. Manny, let's start with that. Quarterback versus quarterback here. Van Dyke versus now Max Johnson. What do our fans need to know about Tyler and what he brings to the squad?
Well, listen, Tyler's played pretty well, I think, for the most part, since about the midway point of last season. Everybody knows that great finish that he had where he averaged over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns a game over the last 6 games. But this season, he's got some new receivers. He's missing Charleston Rambo, who was his #1 target. He's missing Mike Harley, who was one of the best slot receivers in the ACC last year. And now he's going to be missing Xavier Restrepo, his top receiver, going into this game. So, he's a little shorthanded, but, this Josh Gaddis offense has run the ball really well. I think the first 2 games, a little more balanced this year. And we'll have to see what he comes up with in the game plan for Texas A&M.
Man, I'm so easily distracted because I'm looking at your shot there. I don't know if this is product placement purposeful or not, but I see the coffee. What's the coffee order of choice, especially down there in South Florida, where I feel like they do it a little specifically in that part of the country?
Yeah, normally it's a Cuban coffee. That's without question. But I'm in Houston. I flew in last night, so I'm here at the game. And so I got my regular Starbucks, just some little bit of cream, a little bit of sugar, just regular old coffee, man.
I always forget that Starbucks actually just offers coffee.
Yeah.
Like normally
Nobody
it's like
gets
some
the
kind of
regular
like
coffee.
just like 9 pumps of this or whatever, extra shots of whatever. So.
But let me go back to something you said. You mentioned Josh Gaddis, a name that's very familiar here in the SEC. How have you seen him evolve? You talked about a little bit of the balance, but the way that people may remember him from his time back here in the conference to where he is now.
Well, look, he's obviously grown quite a bit back from when he was in the SEC and working at some of those other schools. And I think, you look at him now coming off winning the Broyles Award. There's a lot more confidence in his play calling, much more experienced play caller. He was in the playoff last year. I know they didn't have much success in that game, but, he's a guy who's more accomplished and I think ready to be a head coach probably in the next couple of years. And I know this. I know the players really like him. They like his offense. They like what he's running. And so far, so good in South Florida.
Another name that's on that staff is one SEC fans are familiar with. Kevin Steele, of course, was the defensive coordinator at Auburn for quite a while. What does this make of this? What do you make of this staff that Mario's brought together and how it's different than maybe years past down there for the Hurricanes?
Yeah, it's a big difference in terms of experience. I mean, obviously, Kevin Steele's coached in a lot of big games, been in the SEC for a long time, was there both at LSU and Auburn, and he's brought in a mentality on this defense of, hey, just get your job done, make the tackle. You look at the Miami defense last year, they were among the worst tackling teams in the country. These first 2 games, albeit Bethune, Cookman, and Southern Miss, they've done really well in terms of assignments and making sure that they're not letting runners kind of break free. I think the secondaries giving up a few big plays here and there, but for the most part in the run game, they've been pretty stout, and that's the #1 thing he had to fix, and so far so good.
Manny, we were talking earlier, I think all college football fans, whether you love Miami or you hate Miami, wants the Canes to be back because college football is better when they're a real factor. But I'm curious as to how you would judge the attention they're getting so far. To me, I kind of feel like maybe they're overrated a bit. A lot of people pointing to that Bethune-Cookman game and the numbers they put up against what is obviously probably inferior talent there. But how did you see the way they played against Bethune versus Southern Miss? Because it looked like to me, I was watching it kind of casually, like there were some moments where they should have put up more. They could have been more locked down against them. I mean, are we overvaluing the opening game of the season and maybe making projections based upon a game that may not necessarily be fair to do that from?
Well, all we've ever done, Chris, is pretty much overvalue Miami for the last 2 decades, right? I mean, every year they somehow end up in the preseason poll and then disappoint. Look, I think this is a team that realistically can be in contention to win its division and get to the ACC championship this year. I think there's no question they have enough talent to do that. They've had that for the last 20 years and have only done it once. But I like this team with Tyler Van Dyke at quarterback. I think he's a very calming presence. I think as long as he's healthy, they've got a chance to do that. But there's no question. The preseason polls every year overrank people. I think this is a top 25 team. I think at their best, maybe they're just outside of the top 10. But this is still a team that's incomplete. Their offensive line, while they've done better under Mario Cristobal and his coaching staff, I mean, there's still areas. You look at the game first half last week against Southern Miss, they gave up 3 sacks. And a lot of it is just guys not putting their eyes where they're supposed to. And these are older players. These aren't like freshmen that you're rolling out there. So yes, this is still a Miami team with flaws. And while the fan base is always excited, and they're definitely excited about Mario Cristobal, I think we all have to be realistic here and look at what's happened at Miami the last 20 years and just say, hey, chill out. We know what this program's done the last 20 years. If they surprise us, let that be a pleasant surprise, not sort of a disappointment.
Sometimes we don't see the forest through the trees, and so we look at A&M in a much different light because we're living it every day here in the SEC. What do you make of Texas A&M football right here, right now?
Yeah, big moment, this game. I mean, you go back and you look at that Appalachian State defeat, and defense did its job, but offensively, I mean, everybody's saying, look, Jimbo's not creative enough. He's got the wrong quarterback in there. And look, it's a real problem with the amount of money he's making, with the recruiting class he just signed. You can't lose those games. Losing to Miami this week, and I think would be devastating for them, especially their recruiting efforts going forward. I think a lot of kids would look at Texas A&M in a different light. We'd have all these stories about Jimbo potentially being on the hot seat, et cetera, et cetera. Even if he isn't, it's just bad press for him. So they got to win this game. They really got to beat Miami here, or it's going to get bad.
Let's go back to the national picture as it relates to Miami. I loved at my time at Florida playing for a guy in Steve Spurrier that played at the University of Florida. And I think the same is true for folks that are playing at Miami. The opportunity to play for a guy that was a legend down there, that played at the school, that can speak from a firsthand perspective, I think is one that resonates with recruits. And one of the reasons why Miami got so good initially was that Howard Schnellenberger put a fence around the Tri-County area down there. What's the recruiting approach right now for Mario Cristobal? Is he able to lock up that area, an area where like Alabama's come in and been really successful taking guys out of that nationally, other schools coming in and doing the same thing? Or in this age, do you have to recruit more nationally in order to be successful if you're the coach at Miami?
Yeah, I think without question, Chris, you got to be able to recruit across the country. And really that's what Mario's done here in his first year. He went out and he's got guys in his class from state of Washington, out in California. I mean, I know they're playing at Bradenton IMG Academy, but the reality is these aren't South Florida area guys. And, you know, here in South Florida, while they keep producing tremendous amounts of talent, the reality is these kids haven't grown up seeing Miami win. They've seen them be pretty mediocre for the last 20 years. So none of them have this sort of natural pull, hey, I want to go play for the team. They want to go out and see the world and go play in the SEC. And so I think he's got to win this game Saturday to help sort of swing the momentum, especially with the 2024 kids. I think the 2024 kids will be watching this game closely.
Yeah, actually all of college football is going to be watching this game. So much on the line for both squads. All right, last question for you, Manny. College football, think of it from coast to coast right now, north to south. Most likable program in college football right now that you don't cover is who?
I'd say Appalachian State. I mean, look, everybody kind of grew up watching them, upset Michigan, right? And they fell in love then, and now they go out and they knock out Texas A&M this past weekend. I mean, they're everybody's team. I think everybody sort of roots for them to knock out the juggernaut. So I think that's the most beloved team in college football.
It's crazy because I think College Game Day might have gone to Kyle Field had Texas A&M and Miami both been undefeated. And what happens? They win that game in Kyle Field, and now College Game Day goes to Boone, North Carolina.
Stole the shine and stole the game day.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Manny, enjoy your time in beautiful nondescript hotel in Houston, and get ready for the press box swaying in Kyle Field comes Saturday, all right?
Looking forward to it, brother. Take care.